Everyone dreams of living an uncommon life, and the best asset you have to achieve your dreams is you. Welcome to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living uncommonly. We're also going to give you some tools and strategies for building wealth and for pursuing an uncommon path that is uniquely right for you.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Wealth Podcast, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey. Today we have Bryce Hensley. Cannot wait to unpack his uncommon story. I have a feeling you're going to get pretty hyped up about it too. Guy was a professional athlete, pitcher. And then he's like, you know what? I want to sing. I want to go country music. So not only is he doing a thing that I think is uncommon, but he's going to talk about the transition. He's going to talk about when you think that you have a perfect gig and you decide, hey, maybe I want to pivot, but a lot of things. And I love unpacking this Bryce's story because at every moment, we all think like, I thought I was liking this, but I might want to change. And so that's why we have him on the show. Bryce, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here today, Phil.
Yeah, for sure. So, Bryce, tell us about your background in professional baseball. That's not the story that we normally open with. So I'm excited to kind of unpack that, and then we'll go into the transition.
Absolutely. I've actually got an older brother that he's 10 years older than me. And so from the time I could walk, basically I had a baseball in my hand. He got drafted to play back in 2008 and played 10 years professionally. So basically I grew up not really having much of a choice, but it was kind of a family that got passed through, all the way down. And so I got to learn the ropes from him and watch him play. And then I got lucky enough in 2018 that the Kansas City Royals drafted me. And it was kind of cool because coming through that, most people show up and they're very green and they have no clue what's going on. But luckily I kind of had a blueprint map of, hey man, this is what to expect. I knew kind of step for step exactly how everything was going to go. So I really lucked out with that part of it.
Yeah. Did you ever have to play minor league? Absolutely.
That's all I did. Yeah. So I never quite made it. I never made it to the majors, but I spent about 7 years in the minor league system. So you talk about grinding through. That's it's a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I had an old business partner, and we went to the Sioux City Explorers, which we have a pitching coach that good friends of ours, and my old business partner wanted to do a home run derby at like a professional field. And he was like, guarantee I can hit a home run. And this guy was like, over my dead body, you can. He's like, but what we'll do is we'll suit you up and you'll take batting practice with the team. And so he even tried to rope me, and I was like, I don't want any part of this. Okay. I could barely hit it out of the outfield. And I know that. So my business partner gets up, but here's what I would say. We hung out with the team for a while, and you talk about grinding. Like I even ask him, like, cause me on finance. So I'm like, how much you get paid? He's like, I don't know, like $1,600 a month. And I'm like, excuse me, what? Like,
yeah.
And you live with like host homes and it is just, you got to love the game. So I get that it's a grind. And I think a lot of people just don't. They just see these people playing baseball and think, oh, they're paying for their family. They're not really paying a lot. They're not getting paid a lot. So that's great. So you were a pitcher, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Okay.
That's I feel it every morning when I wake up. I'll wake up and the shoulder still doesn't like to get going for me in the morning. So it's that's probably one of the grinding parts of it.
What'd your brother play?
He was a pitcher too. So it's always funny. We're very opposite. When he graduated high school, he was 6'3", 180 pounds, 170 pounds, and threw 98 miles an hour. And when I graduated, I was 6'4", 230 pounds, and threw 88. So we were. Dad had a right-handed first, and then I think he tied my right hand behind my back for most of my life.
Yeah,
to try to teach me how to be left-handed. Exactly. He said he had one science experiment. He wanted to do two at the end of it. So
it's like Rafael Nadal, who's like, "No, you're going to play with your left hand." Okay.
I'm telling you, that's because it's weird. People always ask me, "Are you left or right-handed?" And I'm half and half. I do everything like in life with my right hand, but I do all sports left-handed.
Yeah. What was your favorite pitch that you used to pitch?
So I threw a sinker, which is just a fastball that it drops down. And my mentality, I was a starter for a couple of years, but then I became a reliever. And my mentality was the quicker I can go out there and get back in, the quicker I can start drinking Coors Light at the end of the day. So my goal was, people always talk about, I want to strike everybody out. And I was like, man, I want to throw 7 pitches. I want to walk in, high five everybody. I want to go to the locker room, go ahead and crack a Coors Light. And if I can do that and be done in 8 minutes or less, then I'm a pretty happy guy.
Yeah.
If you can get paid to go out there and work for 8 minutes a day, it's pretty solid.
You're doing okay. That's
exactly.
Cool. So in high school, did you sing at all? Like, where did this little path take you? Or like, when did you like, hey, I kind of like this thing?
It's crazy. I was very embarrassed about it because I didn't think I was very good and very talented. And, music's one of those things where I can go out on a baseball field and it's something I've done my whole life. But I remember, my buddies would be over at the house and I'd be playing a guitar, singing something. They'd come upstairs and I'd drop it and hide it under the bed or something like that, And it's, I guess it's just one of those immaturity things if you don't want anybody to hear it. And so I never really did it much in high school. I wrote songs, in secret. But when I got to college, I played an open mic night or two. And when I got drafted, I pretty much just put it all off to the side and was like, you know what, we're going to go straight and narrow. I'm focusing everything on baseball. I'm giving it 100% of everything I got. And this is pretty much it. And, the pandemic in 2020 came and it kind of wrecked everybody's plans. We were in Arizona for spring training and got called in and they said, hey, you guys are going home. We don't know for how long. All we know is you're going home and they're shutting the world down. And, everybody kind of dealt with the same thing. So I went home and, my dad, as redneck and blue collar as he is, I was living at home at the time for the off seasons. And he looked at me and he goes, well, if you're staying here, you ain't going to stay here for free. You're going to work. And he owns a construction company back home. So he put me to work. And I realized very quickly that, as redneck and blue collar as I am, I would never made to work construction. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I started thinking, I said, I got to find something I can do where I ain't going to do this anymore because I can't stand it. I don't like waking up in the mornings. I don't like it when it's hot outside.
Yeah.
And
you want to get paid to pitch 7 pitches, be done.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. You go from doing that and everything, and then all of a sudden you're waking up and you got to be at the job site at 7:30 in the morning. You're out there grinding, trying to build houses for other people. You're like, man, this is a heck of a change. Yeah. So one of my buddies and I, one night on Zoom, wrote a song, and I put a video of it on the internet and was like, what's the worst that can happen? And then pretty much from there on out, it was just, let's see where we can take this thing.
What was the song?
It was called The Times I Almost Died. And you look back and it was awful. I listened to it the other day for the first time. When you listen to yourself on a voicemail and you're like, God, that's what it feels like for that. And I'm like, I hate that so much. But, nobody ever knew that I could sing or, knew that I had any interest in it or I could play guitar or anything. So I wrote this song with my buddy and we put a video of it on the internet and everybody was so surprised. And my baseball agent called me and was like, why'd you not tell me about this? And I said, well, it doesn't have anything to do with baseball. Why would I?
Yeah.
And he wanted to put his hands in a little bit of everything. He said, let me make some phone calls. He said, what do you need? How much money? How can I help? Let's give this thing a chance. He was like, you can make money doing this. I was like, yeah.
Get out of
here.
What
do you mean? He was like, people will pay. He was like, Bryce, you've been to concerts. People, pay for you to come do this stuff. I was like, oh my God. So all of a sudden from then on out, it was, let's see where this thing can take us.
Wow. That's crazy. Cause I do feel like, especially in this uncommon path, a lot of people, we feel like our giftings aren't valuable because it's so easy for us to do.
Absolutely.
Like your agent being like, no, you can get paid for that. You're like, wait, what? Like you can get paid to do this thing that I love? Like get out.
Exactly. Exactly. And, people always say like, find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't believe that's true because I do love this and God, we work our ass off a lot of times.
Yes.
But
right. That's exactly
it's also,
right.
And but you think about it, you're like, man, it's something I love to do. Why would people pay to come see this? And then you start to realize, hey, I'm one of those people that pays to go see this.
That's right. Yeah. Bryce, you're just already a kindred spirit of the show because I say that often that like, you find something you love to do and you won't work a day in your life. I think that's baloney. Like You'll work harder than anybody else, yet it'll be more rewarding because you're doing something that you absolutely love to do. And so how many months ago or years ago was that when your agent, was it 2020?
It was 2020. So it's been about almost exactly to the day 4 years. Which is crazy because that made me feel really old. I appreciate that. Thank you for that one. But
try to help, Nice. Okay. So 4 years you've been out this almost doing like the triple or the minor leagues for singing.
Exactly.
What's the difference and what's the similarities of your professional baseball career?
That's a question I haven't been asked. I don't know. It's I got very lucky on the front end, which is something that I didn't necessarily have in baseball. In baseball, I knew what I was doing because, again, I had the path laid out for me. My brother, I watched him go through it and had it explained. When we walked into the music scene, we had, and part of the time I still have no clue what I'm doing. when I walk out onto a baseball field, I can take a baseball in my hands and I can make it move whatever way I want to. And you know what I mean? I'm very specific and I understand how everything works. With music, I'm still blind half the time. So I got, my roommate's, he's a genius with this stuff and teaches me and helps me through it. It's half the time it's like he's teaching a third grade music class because he's sitting here trying to explain this stuff to me and I can't figure it out. Yeah. But, definitely the grind part of it it's always a learning process, and it's always, if you can get better at it and if you pay attention and, if you really give a lot of effort and you give a lot of love to your craft, it always gets better. And, I think the biggest difference is, I can go out and I can feel terrible during a baseball game and you have no clue. You're standing far away and you have no clue if I walk out there and I'm super hungover when I go to pitch. Yeah. You have no idea. Right. But when I step up on stage, people can always tell when you're not authentic. If you go up there and you act like you don't want to be there, it's, I bartended for Zach Bryan was in town for the 2 days this weekend. And just the energy in the room you can feel because people show up and they get excited. And that's why people are, paying so much money to go see him. And he's selling out every show because you walk in there and that guy's as authentic as you can be. And he sells out everything because the energy in the room more than anything else. Right. So I think that's the biggest difference of it. But it's all the same thing of, learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to perfect your craft, and obviously not always getting paid a whole lot of money for it, but still going out there and doing something you love at the end of the day.
Yeah. We just had Hinterland. It's a pretty big venue here in Iowa. And somebody posted about it. One, it was packed. And she said, like, music is therapy for me. And I was like, that's really kind of true. Like, there is something about getting around music that's really powerful. Okay. So what is your favorite song you sing currently? That's your pitch. Like, that's your jam.
Oh man. I love singing my own music. That's something I've always enjoyed is, writing my own music. Like you said, music's therapy. And that's what it's been for me is, a lot of times when I'm going through something in life or when I've got something on my mind and I can't really put it into words, for some reason, when music starts, I can put words behind it. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's one of those cool things where, I write a song about how I'm feeling or about something I went through. And country music, especially, you get to be very vulnerable in, and it's a very scary thing, but you get to, you can walk out there and put it all on the line and you get to realize, hey man, this world's a lot smaller than I thought it was. People are just like me. They're going through the same thing. They feel the same thing. And it makes you feel a whole lot less alone in the world. But, playing these shows that we're playing and going around town and traveling and doing stuff, obviously we got to play a lot of covers, and I like stuff that gets the crowd going, and I like to pick songs that, you walk down the street in Nashville, and Nashville's great, but you walk down the street and you hear the same 15, 20 songs over and over. So I like to sing songs that people are like, man, that's, we'll do a country version of All Star, and we'll go out there and people start and they're like, oh my God. But,
that's great.
One that I do love to sing that people forget about and they forget how much they love is Strawberry Wine. You go out there and start singing that, dude, and the people in the crowd go nuts.
They like that one.
So I've become a big fan.
Okay. I want you to add No Diggity to your repertoire.
Oh,
let's get it going.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, watching Pitch Perfect made me fall back in love with that song. When I heard it, I was like, man, these guys crushed that. Absolutely.
Yeah, they did. I love it.
And that's the fun part is you take songs like that, nobody ever thinks like, oh man, this redneck's going to be singing, something like that. And you turn around and you make it your own and people love it. And they forget how much they love songs like that.
Honestly, Post Malone's going country, which there's something about it. Like, it seems like that's where it's kind of headed country. So you got ahead of that curve. Good job.
That's what I'm saying. Just trying to hop on.
That's right. Okay. I want to talk about something. I'm super glad you're here. You're an artist. I think you can relate to this. I don't know if you'll be able to relate yet, but I think you will be. So let's talk about the song that you love the most, that gets the most popularity. It's the same one. You have to sing it like thousands of times. Oh. And that's what the crowd wants to hear. So speak to that a little bit of like the mundane of the repetitive nature of your craft over time. And how do you guard yourself from being like, I hate that song? I went to a concert. Let me preface it by, I went to a concert. It was Nickel Creek. I don't even know if they might be a band now, but they kind of took a little hiatus, but they're bluegrass. And he had this song called Lighthouse. It's actually a really cool song, but I went to go see him in person. And again, they're bluegrass. So it was busy, but not as packed as anyway. And somebody's like, sing Lighthouse. He was like, I am so sick of singing that freaking song. And I was like, I appreciate his honesty. And then he ended up singing it. But I was like, I feel for you, man. Cause singing that song over and over has to be just beat my head against the wall. So I'll let you answer.
I had never thought about it until I started this. The first song that I put out was a song called Growing Up in Me, which, I wrote it during COVID I was, what was that? 24, 25 years old. And I was sitting here watching, people having kids and people getting married. And I'm sitting here crushing a bottle of wine on a Wednesday during COVID with my dad. And I'm like, man, I guess I still got some growing up left to do. And I wrote it again as, it was therapeutic for me. And when I started singing, people related to it a lot. So they wanted me to sing it all the time. And it got to that point where I never thought about it before, but I was like, man, I have sang this song at every show. So we started switching it up. And, that's actually something I'm running into now where, I retired from baseball about 3 months ago. And this is the first time that I've been out, 3, 4, 5 days a week playing. And I tell my roommate all the time, I'm like, we got to start adding new stuff to the set list. I'm in here trying to write songs because I'm like, we got to start playing new stuff. But he actually told me something very funny. The song Wagon Wheel is one of the most overplayed songs of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll always joke around with the band and I'll be like, all right, we're playing Wagon Wheel. And they'll, kind of put their heads down and look at me. And, he talks about the guy that wrote that song and he has to play it all the time because obviously, everybody knows the words to it. Everybody sings along. And if we're playing a show where the energy's not huge there, I'll be like, all right, boys, we got to do it.
But, we're going to the well. We're going to the well.
We're going to the well. But, he was talking about the guy that wrote Wagon Wheel, and he was like, man, I love that song. That song bought my house and bought my mom's house. Like, I love it. So when you think about it, and I think, it's everything in life so much about perspective of like,
right.
Hey man, I get really tired of playing this song over and over. And especially, guys people that are, quote unquote, one hit wonders, they have that one song that everybody knows.
Right.
I think it's about perspective. You can either get really sick of playing it or you can realize, hey man, like I wrote this song, I put everything into it and I got to sing it a lot, but like, it's the one that gave me a chance, it's the only reason I'm here. And it gave me a chance to do something else. And, it's kind of the same way with baseball where we go out and do the same thing every day for 162 games a year. And you go out and you work on such little things. And I heard somebody say the other day, like the mundane is what makes you excel when you don't realize that you have to do it. When you get out in the middle of there and you practice and, baseball wise, we were so bred to understand that we do these boring things all the time when there's no pressure on. So we're so used to when the pressure comes on. I'm so used to doing it. It's just habit at this point. Exactly.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about just working the crowd. Like that had to be a change, right? I mean, baseball, you just throw an amazing sinker, you strike them out, the crowd goes nuts. Thank you. I'm going to go to the dugout. But now up on stage, it's a whole different deal. How was that transition for you?
Honestly, I think that was the easiest part.
Yeah.
Funny enough, my dad, they always joke around that I've kind of always been the one where I like to entertain people. It's one of the really cool things I do with my dad. We book a big show or we're getting ready to play in front of a bunch of people and my dad's there. Before I go on stage, we have this little routine of, I'll go in there, I'll warm up and get ready and everything. And right before I get ready to go on, he'll come up and give me a big hug. And he always tells me, you were born to do this. Nice. And it's become one of those really special things between the two of us. But I've always liked to entertain people, whether it's, cracking jokes or, I like to try to bring the energy up. And, even in baseball, I'm sitting there watching 162 games a year and I'm throwing for 7 minutes every other game at best.
Yep.
So I would go through the crowd and go talk to people in the crowd, and that's kind of one of the big things. If anybody that knows me will tell you, I don't ever stop talking pretty much. If I'm awake, I'm going to talk. And I'll sit there and have hour-long conversations with people I've never met before, just because that's the way my personality works. So I think that was the easiest part of, I'd be bored watching a baseball game because I'm sitting here watching, number 89 of 162 this year. So I'm up there talking to the crowd about some guy that's from Detroit, Michigan, and we know one person in common. And we're sitting here talking, trying to figure out, things we have in common. So I think that was one of the biggest parts that made it really easy of, hey man, you go out and work a crowd, you just get excited. And I think I've gotten, especially lately, I don't even talk to the crowd that much anymore. During the show, I go up there and, we'll say a couple things, we'll crack a couple jokes and talk a little bit. But I mean, I think it's, people show up to hear the music. And I think that's a huge thing I used to try to talk too much. And I had somebody tell me at one point, they were like, man, we enjoy getting to know you, but will you shut up and sing already? So every once in a while, we'll go out there and talk. And I think that's how you get to know us a lot better up on stage. Right. But, we always go out after the show and talk to everybody and thank them for coming out. But, I really enjoy that part of it. It's, sure. It's a very special part. And when you're down to earth and you don't act better than anybody and you realize, hey man, the only way I have a career is you guys showing up to come out and listen to us play. It puts definitely a new perspective onto it.
Right. That's good. Okay. your favorite venue to play at?
Oh man.
That you've played so far. Like you have to have played it.
Okay. That narrows it down a whole lot then. So in 2020, what year is it? In 2021, I got, like I said, from the get-go of this, I got extremely lucky. I'd been on stage. I had done 2 open mic nights, and I played a show at a bar for $50 and a $50 bar tab. And I get a call from my agent. He goes, "Hey man, I just booked you a show." And again, we were so green to this. I had no clue what was going on. And he goes, "You're opening for this guy named Jake Owen." And I said, "Shut up, dude." I was like, that's funny. And he goes, "I'm sending you the contract right now." And I get this contract. I'm like, that's funny. He puts me on a plane, and I'm like, "Seriously, where are we going?" And he's like, "Bryce, I wasn't kidding. We've sold 10,000 tickets."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and I show up and I see the venue, and we're playing. It was Archbishop Hoban High School in Akron, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
And I think I got up there and I just stood there for a minute because I was like, oh my God, this is real. He wasn't kidding. And you can go play baseball in front of, I've played in front of 20,000 people, and it's fun and it's exciting and it's easy because, you got 10 people on the field to look at any time. You go up on stage, it was just me and a guitar. And it's like, man, there's nobody else to fix it. Exactly. It's a lonely feeling up there, but it's also the most exhilarating feeling in the world of, I sang the song 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20, which is another one of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
And it was the only time that I had ever heard 10,000 people sing a song to me.
That's awesome.
I'm telling you, it gives me chill bumps to this day. And I forgot the words. Like they started singing, and I kind of just froze and became a fan.
Just let them sing. Take it away.
I just stood back and I just let them sing. And then I went to sing the second verse, and I was like, I don't remember the words. And I somehow improvised and played it off. And I came off stage. My dad goes, "You forgot all the words, didn't you?" I said, "Dad, I've never heard that many people sing at me like that." Yeah. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I kind of freaked out for a minute, but that was definitely probably one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
Was that the biggest venue you've played at so far?
Oh, by far. We played in front of a couple thousand people otherwise, but to see 10,000 people out there, and I was talking to Jake's band before it and everything, and they asked me, they were like, "Oh, how many shows have you done?" I was like, "Oh, this is number 4." And they were like, "Oh, this week, that's a busy week." And I was like, "No." And they were like, "This month, it's a little slow." And I was like, "No, this is my 4th show ever." And they kind of just looked at me for a minute, and they were like, "And you're about to walk up there with just you and a guitar in front of 10,000 people?" And I was like, man, I didn't really know what else to do. So they told me I booked it. So I figured, and I walk up there and I come back down. They go, "That took some balls." And I was like, "I just thought it took some beers. I don't know about the balls." But we got up there and they said, "Listen, the stage lights are bright. You won't be able to see anybody. You're good." And I got up there and I got to thinking, and I'm like, man, I go on at 5 p.m. It's still fully light outside. And I got up and I saw 10,000 faces, and I was like, "You guys are liars."
Even worse.
Exactly.
That's good, man. That's good. Okay. So how do our listeners hear more about you, and reach out, and how do they book you? Those kind of things. How do we help?
I've got a website, brycehensley.com. I've got a lot of information on there. Usually I'm a little redneck for a lot of this technology, so I struggle trying to figure some of it out, but Instagram is the one I use probably more than anything else. It's Bryce Hensley Music, and it's the same on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else. So it's got my email and contact information and everything between those. So.
Wow, man. Well, I'm a super fan, man. I'm grateful that you shared your uncommon journey with us. I'm looking forward to your future. What would you say to your younger self? Of all the wisdom that you know now, what would you say to your younger self earlier on?
The one thing I've really learned along the way is, and I got it tattooed on my wrist, actually. It says, "Be where your feet are." I got so long I got into, I should be here. I want to be here. I want to be doing this. And I kind of had to take a step back and realize, I'm where I am for a reason. I'm supposed to be right here. It's part of the journey. It's part of the process. And that's kind of just enjoying the moment. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I've really tried to make a big habit of, we go up there and play in front of 10,000 people. And the first thing I do is I step up on stage and I take a deep breath and I just look around, because if all you're worried about is getting it over with and getting it done, you look back in 20 years and you realize that, hey man, I watched all these moments go away and I never really enjoyed them. And it's, I've been so blessed and so lucky that none of this really ever should have happened. I lucked into so much of this, and if I don't take time to enjoy it, then I kind of wasted it, and that's, I've never been so business-like to the point where I'm like, all right, I got a job, I got to get it done. I want to sit back and, we've got a job to do, but I like to smell the roses while I do it. You never want to look back from 20 years from now and be like, man, I really wish I would have enjoyed it more. you can look back and be like, you know what, all right, I got to focus a little bit, but it's really hard to go back and try to enjoy moments that you didn't. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just enjoy where you're at right now, because in 20 years or, in a year or in a month, you're going to be very thankful for where you were. So I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I got.
All right, good. Bryce Hensley, thanks for your wisdom. Thanks for your uncommon journey. Thanks for sharing it with us. And
appreciate you having me.
Look forward to hearing more about you in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Uncommon Wealth Podcast. Until next time, go be uncommon, even if it is not what you thought it was going to be. Be present and make your own uncommon journey. Thanks for listening.
That's all for this episode, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon